Shalom, shalom. Today I wanted to talk about a few things. Today is the 4th of July. A lot of people celebrating this wicked country. Um, Seems like fewer people will be celebrating this year because some of the recent developments. Of course, you got these high food prices, high gas prices. Um, Now you got Roe v. Wade, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Just because it's been, I think the announcement came on June 24th that the Supreme Court overruled the ruling, which the ruling stated that um, it essentially only stated that the abortion laws are up to the states to set. Before with Roe v. Wade, it basically legalized the procedure on a federal level. Now it's not federal; it's on a state level. So while Roe v. Wade has been overturned, that doesn't mean that abortion is completely banned in all states. There are still some states where it's acceptable and easily accessible without too many restrictions. But there are going to be states that want to hold on to their original values. A lot of states down, in the South, you'll tend to see erring on the side of abandoning abortion rights, which a lot of people have a lot of different takes, but you're either on one side or the other, right? Pro-life, pro-choice. I'm gonna just say this now, man, and I might lose a lot of friends, maybe, I don't know. At this point, I guess I really don't care because I've been kind of, letting the chips fall where they may all this time anyway. But if anybody disagrees with my opinion from here on out, that's cool. I don't love you any less. We don't have to fight about it. You can keep it moving. If it's that serious to you, where you're gonna just completely forsake me as a someone around or in your life, or if you just don't really value anything I say just because of that one opinion, we weren't meant to be walking and striving together anyway. So that out of the way, I just wanted to kind of just go over some of my thoughts on this because abortion is a topic that is very controversial, but in my eyes and in the eyes of anyone who claims to love God, serve God, and whether that be, I'm just going to say the God from the Bible, so mainly Christians and anyone else who follows any Abrahamic religions, you shouldn't have, if you're really bound to that book, you really shouldn't have any problems with what I'm going to say about it. So, abortion has been around for a long time, probably longer than we know. We always think back to, I just want to touch on Margaret Sanger real quick, who back in the 70s, she proposed starting Planned Parenthood. Today they dress it up all nicely as this, it's of course, Planned Parenthood is not just about abortions. They also, I guess, assist expecting mothers with, like child care help, financial assistance, things of that nature. But for the most part, Planned Parenthood was created to facilitate abortions. These clinics are placed predominantly in black areas, but they're all over the place. And originally, Margaret Sanger's her intentions were genocidal. She thought that black people reproduced too fast, too much. Her goal was to slow that, and also to instill a form of eugenics, and basically genetically weed out the bad apples, which would be to her standards black people. She even went to the Ku Klux Klan and preached a lot of this stuff, and this is like selective breeding. It's like Pokemon. If you ever play Pokemon, you catch a Pokemon, you can go deeper than that. You can breed the Pokemon, and you basically throw away the Pokemon that don't have the perfect stats, and you keep the ones that do. And that's basically what Margaret Sanger wanted to do. Basically, what Hitler wanted to do. So, a lot of what Planned Parenthood is rooted in like Hitlerism, if that's a thing. I don't know if it is. I just made it up if it is. So, so here's the thing, I just want to go over a few stats real quick before we jump into the scriptures, because a lot of people will probably look to refute with some of the more common points I'm seeing. So we'll start with almost a quarter of abortions are voluntary, meaning there was no medical necessity to halt the pregnancy. Only less than 1% of abortions are from rape victims who didn't want the pregnancy. And teenage girls only account for 9% of abortions. That's anywhere from 13 to 19. I'm sure much of that is on the higher end of that spectrum. The vast majority come from women in their 20s and 30s. Okay, so one of the main things that people are using to argue for abortion is, oh, what if the woman gets raped? What if, that she gets raped and doesn't want to keep the baby? Or what if, she has the child too young? Well, in those instances, that those are unfortunate circumstances. However, they do only account for a fraction of the total cases, and but we'll get into that more a little bit later. But let's talk about what abortion actually is. Okay, it's murder. A lot of people will say, a fetus. A fetus is a fetus. No. It's not just a fetus. Okay, a fetus is human life. It has to start somewhere, right? It starts as a single cell from a sperm that penetrated an egg, and in that egg, the cells start to multiply, and they begin to multiply, and they multiply, and they multiply, and they multiply, and they multiply. Before you know it, you have fingers and toes and lungs and hearts and eyes and hands and noses and tongues and ears and hair and all kinds of stuff going on. So clearly, a fetus is not just a fetus. A fetus turns into a human, and a fetus is a human. Okay, and we can support that with scripture as well. So even in its most embryonic form, a fetus is considered life. All right. So just because you aborted the baby at 3 weeks versus 8 weeks versus 12, whatever part of the trimester you want to talk about, it's still a baby. You're still destroying life that ought to have the chance to experience life. Okay, consider the fact that millions of babies were being aborted per year, right? Apparently that's kind of slowed down in recent years, but it's still 500,000 to almost 1 million babies aborted each year, especially in the black community. Think about how many humans. If you extrapolate the data from the time period, let's just say even just from Planned Parenthood, all the way up until now, you're talking about potentially dozens or maybe even hundreds of millions of lives wiped out. Like if those babies were born, and then say even just that stock of babies only reproduced with itself. Fast forward maybe say even just 10, 20, 30 years from now, how much potential life has been wiped out? Millions, hundreds of millions, eventually billions. Okay, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's multiplicative, right? The more you wipe out, they never had a chance to even survive. So who knows how many those babies would have produced. So you think when you think about it on that scale, you have to think about it on that scale, because over the course, and like I said, I'm just talking about from now until 30 years from now. Think about from the 70s. Think about from before that, when they were being done illegally, illegal procedures, which still happens today in the U.S., still happens all over the world. So legal abortions are only are declining, but the amount of total abortions on a global scale, I don't even want to think about it. Anyway, the Most High confirmed that a fetus is a human to Jeremiah the prophet in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, he was speaking to Jeremiah, telling him what to expect in the times ahead. And he was telling Jeremiah, you know what? I want you to be my prophet that'll get Israel on the straight and narrow. And this is why, So here's what he said exactly in Jeremiah 1:5. He said, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations." So he's telling Jeremiah here that he knew that Jeremiah was going to pop out of that womb and be his prophet to help set the world straight. Okay, so but even though he's talking to Jeremiah in this instance, it's confirming that the Most High, as he's always said, we're his creation, and he knows what we're gonna do before we know what we're gonna do. He knew what we were gonna do yesterday. He knew what we were gonna do today. He knows what we're gonna do tomorrow before we even know it. Okay. So before I even knew who I was in adulthood, he knew what my path would be. I walked my path not even knowing what my path was, and I'm still somehow surviving that path. It's like I'm walking on autopilot because it's just what was meant to be for me. And that goes for every single soul, every single human on this planet. Okay? The Most High controls everything in this existence. So, even though, you have like agency over your own choices and things of that nature, but the Most High knew that too, right? He knew there would be some who just wouldn't heed to proper instruction and wanted to live by his laws and statutes and commandments. So before he knew thee, before you were born, he knew thee in the womb. Okay. So this means that as a human, your existence happened before you were even a physical thought in this physical realm. So you were a human just by the definition of being a spirit that transplanted to this world. Okay? That spirit is probably in its lowest form at that time, but it's still a spirit. And eventually that spirit, just like the baby grows, that spirit grows within that baby. So as that baby comes down the chute, the moment it starts to materialize, that's life. The very single moment it starts to materialize, that is life. Okay? So I don't care what stage you're in. I don't care what your views are on it. Abortion is murder. You're murdering your children. And it doesn't matter what reason it is either. Okay? You can say, oh, rape. Someone was raped. Well, we'll get into that a little later. I want to keep going real quick, though, just to talk about how technically abortion, I mainly want to talk about how abortion is child sacrifice, which the Most High strictly forbids in his laws. Starting with Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 29. When the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them, and dwellest in their land. Take heed to, and he's talking to Israel here. Take heed to thyself, that thou be not snared by following them. After that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve these gods? Even so will I do likewise. Verse 31. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God, for every abomination to the Lord, which he hateth, have they done unto their gods. For even their sons and their daughters they have burnt in the fire to their gods. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. Okay. So he's talking here about how, Israel, whenever he commands Israel to basically take over a nation. Um, in those commandments, he says, you know what? Do not even touch their things. Do not go after their ways or whatever they were doing before you got there. Let them do what they do. Let them have that. I have a purpose for you. I have instructions for you to keep. You let them have that other stuff because that stuff is an abomination to me. It's detestable. It's deplorable. Um, and a lot of what they were doing in those other nations was child sacrifice, sacrificing to Moloch and Bel and all kinds of others, other idols and deities, sending their child through the fire, so to speak. Literally burning their children alive as a sacrifice to these gods for whatever purposes, whether they, whether it was for, channeling spirits or trying to talk to the dead or trying to will good fortune. That's not the way to do it. Burning your child is not the way to do it. Never was. Never. That will never be a thing in the sight of the Most High. Okay. Ever. It will never be a thing. So when these people did this, it was basically a grave sin. One of the a very hard sin to forgive. And that's what I believe abortion is. I'm sorry, but it is, because you're robbing this world of life that the Most High ordained to be here. So you're taking it upon yourself to judge who lives and who dies. And we know that power only rests in the hands of the Most High. It should only rest in the hands of the Most High. But a lot of people are taking it upon themselves to make that decision. This whole pro-life versus pro-choice debate, a lot of people like to say, my body, my choice. That's the popular saying. I disagree with that too. Okay? It's not your body. It's not your choice. Again, I'm speaking to those who believe in the Bible. If you don't believe in the Bible, keep it moving. This is not for you. Okay? You already have your own set of standards based on, I guess your own desires and whatever. This is for the people who claim to follow God, to love God, and to want to follow His ways and laws and statutes and commandments. So, if you believe that, then you do not own your body. Okay, the Most High owns your body. The Most High owns you. Okay. Even like children, like parents who have children, right? A lot of parents these days, and just in general, but a lot of parents treat their children as if they're their property, as if they can control their lives and they can tell them to do whatever they want to do, and the child has to listen. Obviously, the child 9 out of 10 will listen because this is the only person they've known who's carried them through life to this point, and so that child's going to listen. But technically, that child is not yours. That child is the Most High's. Okay, why do you think when a child comes of a certain age, typically in this day and age, we look at the age as 18, right? Child turns 18, they graduate high school, they get a job, they move out of their parents' house, and they basically become their own adult, right? So you never own that child, not at any stage of their lives. You were tasked with raising the child. You raised the child, you loved the child like you should, but you did not own that child. Some people even like to say they borrowed the child. You could say that. You borrowed the child. You're borrowing the child from the Most High. But really, your job as a parent is to teach that child how to serve the Most High. That's it. That's literally all you are there to do for that child. The child is not your servant. It's not your plaything. It's not your friend. It is not your puppet. It's not your chess piece. A lot of women like to use children to basically control men. And men do it too. Let me not just put it on one gender. I don't like the gender war thing, but just have to call it what it is sometimes, right? So you don't own that child. The Most High does. That's the Most High's children. We're all the Most High's children. So, your body, your choice? I don't think so. I think the moment that you take it in your hands to literally rip a baby out of your womb and essentially kill its chances of living a life, you have murdered that baby. All right. And it can be considered a form of child sacrifice. So, because oftentimes, like in the scriptures, back in those times, you sacrificed the child by basically sending it through the fire, burning it alive in the mouth of Molech Bel, but of course we can't be so literal with scripture all the time. The book was written in a time, in a way different time. The times we're in now, we can adapt it by saying, when they take those fetuses and do cell research, cellular research, or they discard the fetus as waste. That has to go through a process. Either they're burning it or they're mutilating it. They're separating all of the different components in some kind of fashion. So usually by some form of it's probably usually going to be done with heat. So either way, you are sending that child through the fire. But technicalities aside, syntax aside, simply put, you're killing a baby. And the reason why it can be considered a sacrifice, I don't personally subscribe to the New Testament, but I do like to use it as a teaching tool. So if you believe in the New Testament heavily, let's go to who the world likes to call Jesus Christ in Mark chapter 8 verse 36, who says, "For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" And that applies to women too. Of course, it says man, but we're also referring to women. And because a lot of women choose to have, at least for the voluntary abortions, a lot of women choose to have these abortions because the baby is just inopportune for them. The baby is getting in the way of their dreams and their hopes and their goals and all that stuff, their education and their career, and their the baby is expensive to take care of, and so they don't want the burden of actually taking care of it. So in a way, you're selling your soul by getting rid of that baby for personal gain. You have sacrificed that baby so you wouldn't have to sacrifice your own selfish needs and wants and desires. And a lot of these times, a lot of these instances happen when, of course, a man and a woman, they're just hooking up for the night, getting home from the club drunk or high, and they just want to have some sex. They don't want to use a condom. It doesn't feel as good. Okay. Boom. Baby pops out. Sometimes the mother thinks the guy is actually for him, and she's happy with that in the moment. And then reality hits. The guy doesn't want to take care of the baby. The guy disappears, and then she's left to be a single mother, oftentimes at very young ages, even in the teenage years. Of course, a teenager is still in high school, for instance, not even having their own full-time job yet. It's going to be difficult for her to take care of that baby unless she drops out and gets a lot of financial help, right? So that baby has basically become a sacrifice for that woman to be able to continue living her life the way she wants to live it. And it sucks, there's no clear answer, because a lot of women are tricked into thinking that the man that they lay down with are the men that is the man that, they're going to spend the rest of their life with. And then it just turns out that that's just not the case. And then when that man leaves, they no longer want the baby. The baby reminds him of the man, or the baby is detrimental to their own path forward in their eyes. I'm sorry for clearing my throat so much. I probably should have grabbed some water, but the show must go on. So that baby has become a sacrifice, regardless, no matter the reason. The baby is being sacrificed for someone else's personal gain. Whether that gain, and it doesn't have to be even monetary or financial in nature. It could just be the fact of keeping your mental sanity. That's also a form of gain. Okay. You say to yourself, I don't know how I could possibly take care of this child by myself. I'm just not gonna do it. And then you get rid of the baby. You know, it's sacrifice. So the solution: close your legs. Stop having sex with people who you do not intend to build a future and a family with until death do you part. Because in biblical standards, you know, the whole purpose of reproduction, reproductive organs is for reproduction. One of the things that Adam and Eve were tasked with was replenishing the earth. And that's all your reproductive organs should be used for. Okay. You could even say, oh, well, you know, what if you use a condom? You could use a condom, or you could use birth control. That's not abortion. That's prevention, preventative maintenance. It's not. You know, the Most High does not like us to spill our seed haphazardly onto the earth, which is all that you're doing when you're ejaculating into a condom. And I'm sorry for using such, I guess, colorful language. But I'm just speaking it like it is. All I know how to do is tell the truth right now. So close your legs. Stop having sex with people for the sake of momentary pleasure. Okay? That's not what it's for. A lot of people can't control their sexual urges and their desires, and that's a huge problem. A lot of people I talk to when I ask them, you know, man, can you just kind of just keep a lid on it for a little while? Like, you know, you're letting this thing rule your life, okay? You're letting it rule your life. That's where a lot of men get in trouble. A lot of men go broke and bankrupt and going through all kinds of hell because they want to please a woman for the simple fact that woman gives them nightly pleasure. That's not what it was for. That's never what it was for. And that's what the enemy has basically tricked us into believing all these years. We go out and we trade all this negative energy because when you're having sex with someone, you are creating soul ties and you are creating negative demonic energy when you're doing it for reasons other than righteous reproduction. So stop having sex. It's as simple as that. Stop having reckless sex. One last question before I wrap this up. Even if you did get raped, whatever happened to adoption? Have the baby, put it up for adoption, let some other loving family take care of that baby. Let that baby have a chance to live. You don't never know what that baby could do for this world. A lot of people who do a lot of stuff for the world now, and they would have never had that chance if their mothers had ripped them out of their womb before they had a chance to grow. Shalom.